Preparing to go to bed. I'm gonna mention two different scenarios here. One, when we are not particularly facing a difficult phase, and still when we're going to bed, there's a lot of thoughts, there's a lot of considerations and reflections, and we are trying to go to sleep, and our minds sometimes don't want to do the same. If, for example, we don't take any time during the day to be present and to acknowledge whatever is going on in our minds, then the only time that we have to do it is when we are going to bed. And it can be the only time that we consciously or not give our mind and ourselves time to sink in and to assimilate everything that went on in the day. And the other scenario is if we are facing something particularly difficult and challenging, then when we go to bed again, it can be difficult. The heart can start to beat faster, anxiety can kick in, and there are certain things that we can do to support us in that situation. One of them is having a sleeping routine. So you probably heard that somewhere else, and that's because it's true. But ideally, no screen 1 hour at least before actually going to bed. So if you're planning to go to bed at 10, from 9 p.m., you don't play with your phone anymore, or tablets, or computers, because there's so much input coming from watching a series, for example, or seeing people on social media, or talking to our friends. And that's just stimulating the brain in the time that we want it to actually cool down so we can sleep. In terms of light, our bodies understands when it's time to sleep, depending on how much light we have or we don't have. And because nowadays there's so many artificial lights, it can be tricky for you to understand when it's time to go to bed. Therefore, one thing that you can do is, again, at least 1 hour, ideally 2, before going to bed. If you have a main light on your ceiling, you turn that off. You can just use a small light or a warm light, a bulb. And ideally, you light your room just with candles. Our ancestors, before going to sleep, they would sit around the fire and they would literally be staring at the fire, sometimes talking, sometimes not even talking. And also the fire brings a sense of warmth, of safety. It really helps as well to calm the mind down. And last but not least, breath work. Doesn't have to be an intense breath work because it can give you energy. But there are really soothing and short breath works that you can do. There is one in particular that I was using a lot on a daily basis when I was struggling a bit more to go to bed. If you want, just send me a message and I can send you the link. And also, if you really cannot, for example, fall asleep without watching something first, just be mindful of what you are feeding your brain with just before going to bed, because that's what you're going to bring into your sleep, and you might not feel as rested as you could on the next day. So give it a go. There's no pressure. You can combine these things. You can do all of them in the same day for a couple of days, for a week, just to really try to create a habit of doing it and observe the impact that it has on you and on your sleep.